Hello ladies and gentlemen, SeKo Starcraft bringing you some more games from the WCS qualifiers Korea. This is up and down matches. We have Squirtle, who I've not casted a game of in a long time, against Fantasy, who I'm excited to just finally be able to start casting his games. Now I know people hate when I speed it up, but this game was ridiculously long. So I'm going to speed it up a little bit once in a while, particularly in between actions, so that way I can save my sanity. I am interested in paying a little bit closer attention to some of these really long Terran versus Protoss games, just because of how absolutely bad I am. Like, my Terran is probably my best race, but it's probably one of my worst against Protoss. Even my PvP, for Protoss being my worst matchup, my PvP is actually fairly decent. But when it comes to Terran versus Protoss, if I don't win in the first 15 minutes, I'm generally not going to win. They're going to get that, you know, 4 Colossus, 4 High Templar come in and just march over everything. And even with some good micros, some good control, just being able to have the technique of getting out the Vikings, the Ghost, moving between tech paths, very, very challenging. See, Fantasy did go for a command center first on the low ground. Very aggressive build, 2 racks follow up, very standard. And on this side, Squirtle actually went for a very safe Cybernetics Core expand, and then he'll go and scout with the Zealot actually. And there won't be much for units out on the map right now, but at least at a minimum it won't be able to cancel this command center. The Nexus does go down along with the next gas. In comes the one Zealot. There's only one Marine. So we're gonna do a little ring around the rosy right now. And that one Zealot's going to be able to help this base stay less effective. I love doing this as a Protoss player, sending in the one early game Zealot. Sometimes what you can do is you can just send it in, and I play, remember, once again in Gold League. You send in that one Zealot, and if they don't micro well, like one Marine is the same speed as a Zealot, so you can't really micro one Marine against a Zealot. It just chases you down, and you can usually pick off a worker or two, maybe a Marine or two with that, and just throw them off a lot by throwing in an early Zealot. Didn't manage to get any work done on this occasion, but he did get a good chance to see what was going on. And now he's got the Watchtower. Stalker looked like he was just running around the base a little bit to see what was going on. Nothing too fancy right now. Nexus is down. If we look at the economy wise, slightly for the Protoss using the Chrono Boost. Pretty small chunk of Marines here. Might just be going to look for any type of weird fast third base play. I generally don't advise, particularly in this small of numbers, to go and do this because you don't have stim, you don't have medevac, so any damage you take is essentially permanent, and all the units the Protoss have are at least as fast, if not faster than you. But Fantasy's just a king at this game, so it doesn't bother me too much. Probe sneaking out. This lends me to believe that we're going to be seeing some sort of 2-base timing push here. Do we have a robo down for it? No, it looks like it's going to be gateway-centric. He's scouting for any type of proxy pylons on that side. He could sneak a Stargate or something down there, I suppose. I don't think that's really what he wants to do. I think he just wants to leave pylons around on the map. I'd do this as well if I've got that early game. Throw a pylon on one side, throw a pylon on the other side. You just never know when they're going to come in handy. One Marine up here checking for that greedy third base we sometimes see. I would encourage players, if you've got pretty good map awareness, just to go and check your third base to see if anybody's squatting on it. Not the best place for a pylon there. That one's a little bit more obvious. It is blink, so it looks like we're going to be getting some sort of 2-base, 3-gate blink pressure. He does have a handful of stalkers out now. This Marine, let's see where his path is. And he sees it. That probe's going to get away, but he should be pretty aware. Oh, this actually could be pretty damaging. That one SCV just had a terrible day. He cancels the 2 bunkers at the front. The ISAV's going to pull these workers. You have to do that. If you let those stalkers just running around inside of your base too long. Great time warps there, though, are going to really slow down a lot of these. He is going to pick off that mothership core, though, and that's actually pretty important. That got rid of all the high ground vision for right now, and there is no, there's no robo for an observer or anything right at this moment. What kind of workers did he get killed? 17 workers in that? That was pretty good. He's up by almost 20 workers right now. And I'm sure he's happy to just use his really good blink micro and pick off as many workers as he can. Didn't lose any of those, just a little bit of shields. Super effective. My keyboard and micro setup are so bad that I can't even hope to try to micro like this. This, in a lot of cases, would just win, I think. We see Double Forge going down at home for Squirtle, so it looks like he wants to continue to macro up. Marauders are out now. I don't think they've got any concussive shells. No, they don't. Stim, combat shields, +1's about to finish. Widow Mines, nice touches. This is generally where they're going to warp into your base from, and they do one-shot stalkers. 24 workers killed. That is so ridiculous. And Squirtle's perfectly fine to just take a little bit of shield damage and pick off a few more. Amazing control out of him so far. He might just be going for a 1-1 timing here on 2 bases to get himself out a lot of other units, build himself some sentries, some zealots to tank, and then just push in. Right now his opponent's pretty flustered. So these stalkers are fairly beat up right now. A little bit of hull damage across all of them. It's a little bit concerning at times. Oopsies, don't zoom in. But I think, come back here, mouse. I think Squirtle is pretty darn impressed with the kind of damage he's gotten done. And this just threat of blink in once again. 30 workers killed already. And we're just crossing the 11-minute mark. Looks like he's perfectly fine to just head home. I mean, his army supply is going to be really good. His charge is going to be finished pretty soon on these zealots with 1-1. And they're going to be able to just jump on top of all that bio. Knowing that this game is much longer, I'm actually quite impressed because this looks like the type of army that could just win games. Well upgraded, blink and charge, 1-1 finished, though the Terran has got +1 attack and only +1 shields on the way still. Couple more gateways. What's sometimes fun to mix into these if you've got the tech is to just throw in some DTs. You can see that there is the 1 missile turret at the front here to protect against that kind of situation. Did he get a Dark Shrine or is that Templar Archives that he got down to? There's Templar Archives and Storm. I love when people get that Storm nice and early. It just lasts so long. It's always going to be useful. The sooner you get it out, the more likely you're going to have that as an option for you. This base is going to go down. I do like that if you have the money to just throw down a couple of cannons just to slow down any drops or attacks that happen on you. I was about to say, if the Terran pushes out across the map, I'm certain we're going to see a base trade. Very smartly, Fantasy does pull back his command center, make it part of his wall off here. So that way busting into this would be very, very difficult. It's kind of funny. Well, he died quickly. If that's any consolation. Factory does see this pylon over here, but there's not much you can really do about it right now. It looks like he's going to go and just drop on that pylon. Which if you've got the APM and the time, you might as well. Bit of a supply block there for Squirtle for just a second. Economy-wise, Terran is almost caught back up again in economy. But he's had to obviously invest a lot more into trying to get that back up. I don't think... Yeah, the Ghost Academies has just started now for Fantasy. So if there were actually more High Templars in there, there's only a handful. There's no chance of stopping the storming that would be happening with those. So if he gets the right engagement, I think Squirtle could take this. And I'm a little surprised he hasn't tried to push just a little bit more. It's not a massive army, but it is a very powerful one. Nice Hallucinated Phoenix does see what he's coming at. Squirtle doesn't really want to push his luck too far. 2-2's just started. pretty big Zealot warp in there. Only managed to get a couple of workers, but it would have pulled the Terran player a long ways out of position. That would have been his opportunity to push into the choke there, dividing the army up. More barracks on the way, Ghosts finally. We got the Mobius reactor, so they can get themselves some extra energy. Very, very important, so you can get out as many EMPs and snipes as you can. More Zealots and High Templars down on this side. Might just be here to deal with any type of counterplay along the left-hand side. I'm drinking Red Bull right now, and it's just starting to kick in, so I'm starting to feel really good. Zap. This is a bit of a better position for the Terran player. Protoss has pulled himself into a really wonky choke. Fantasy pulls back into even supply there, and his upgrades aren't that far behind. And it's difficult to say that there had been anything that... The Storms kill a little bit of stuff there. Fantasy is starting to take that supply lead, getting all of his macro structures down. We did just see the robotics facility happen. So we could be getting, here we go, double Colossus production. He's got the economy to it, moving up onto a 4th base. Some cannons sitting around in different spots. Only one in the main, full energy High Templar to be able to feed back any medevacs coming in for drops. I think Squirtle just was a little too timid. Great opening with the Blink Stalkers, tons of economic damage. He leveraged that into getting a great economy and army for himself. But I don't think he took it far enough to be able to really get that lead that he wanted. I do like seeing this from Protoss players, these small little cannon emplacements. That means that there can't be cloaked ghosts sneaking up on your army as easily. Pretty good hits on the EMPs, but it's mostly on Stalkers and Zealots, not grabbing any of these Archons. Constant Zealot run-bys, helping a lot. These armies are dancing around each other a little bit here. Don't think they both know where the other person's army is. Might go for a big drop or just a walk up into the front. And I think this is what Squirtle should have done earlier on, which is try to take the position in between the bases, just so that you can go in there and divide the army and the reinforcements. Ghosts are lagging behind here. You got to be very careful about that as a Terran player. The ghosts do not move as quickly if you've stimmed to get away from anything. Dark Templar storms the hell out of, I think, 1 or 2 Marines. Why not? No, I'm sure Fantasy isn't too worried here. He knows that his opponent does have a better economy going right now, but he's got a great army. He's macroing up pretty good behind us with additional command centers, and his upgrades are keeping pretty close in check. He does know that Colossus are coming, so we do see the upgrade for the air weapons. Only 3 Colossus right now, and as a Protoss player, this is where you should feel really comfortable, is now you can move between Colossus if they overcommit on Vikings, you move into Storms and other ground units. Fantasy does max out sooner, which means he's not going to be able to really get out any Vikings to deal with these Colossus. He's just got too much army supply. Very good job from Squirtle, continuously taking these watchtowers, granting himself the maximum amount of vision he can. Couple more observers, couple more cannons going down all over the place just to make sure he doesn't get bum rushed. There's the bum rush I was talking about. There's not much energy in these medevacs though. It's a good job from Squirtle to notice that, because if he tried to feed back them, it really wouldn't have gotten much done. As you can see, this big red blob moving across the map. This is where Fantasy realizes he can pull the entire Protoss army out of position and go and get better map control. Pretty formidable amount of Colossus here. And once again, very low Viking count. Total Viking count right now is at 4 against... How many Colossus do we see on the map right now? 6. Stargate on the way as well. Full tech book coming out from the Protoss player. Love to see a full-blown mothership. When's the last time anybody saw one of those? Another surprising thing is that we didn't see DTs at all. The run-bys with Dark Templars, super fun to use. They can just do incredible damage if they're not caught very quickly. And right at this point, you can see the kind of bank that Squirtle has would allow him to do that. Small Zealot run-by coming on the side here. This random medevac spots it. And it's going to allow Squirtle to get better position now. Widow Mines are still kicking around from much earlier in the game. Picking up a couple ghosts would be pretty nice. Does he not have cloak yet? No, get the ghost. Now that is cool. Super cool. Those zealots decide to go into a corner and just run around in circles. So adorable. Now, we saw Squirtle take a really bad attack earlier in the game that ended up costing him his army lead. We gotta see how he wants to take a position right now. We see a lot of hesitation out of the Protoss player to commit, even with like essentially the perfect army. Just really nervous about trying to push in against this, because if we take that wrong, what the hell's up with that? Silly. Nukes. Ah, yes. The nukes. More nukes. 3 nukes at a time. Now I think the Protoss player is in position who is willing to start taking some fights. The Tempests will outrange the Vikings and protect his Colossus better. He does have observers in his army to try to spot any cloaked ghosts. Yes, they do have cloak and they have nukes. More command centers going down as these players essentially just split up the map. A little oversaturated there, but not too bad. He's got a huge bank, so he's not as worried about it. There's a planetary fortress over here. Once again, I don't think Squirtle minds too much about trying to trade off a little bit of his army supply. There isn't as big of a bank yet for Fantasy, but I don't think he needs as many SCVs as he has now anyways. Pretty intense army from the Terran as well. Viking count still pretty low in the grand scheme of the Tempest. Was he at now? 8, 3 more on the way, plus ranged weapons +2. Love Chrono Boost for that as well. You always have so much Chrono Boost towards this stage of the game, but you can just boost everything. I need more Red Bull. This game is so long. He's scanning to see if he sees any observers or where the army is at. Once again, does not want to get caught off guard running through a choke. That's pretty funny. Oh yes. Alright, now we're into that weird spot where everybody's just dancing around each other, so we can speed it up slightly. Nobody really wants to take an engagement even though they're maxed out, got giant upgrades. We're getting into Raven production now, and more ghosts. Oop, getting close. Yeah, Tempest. This is so funny. These guys are so close. This is like mobile tank sieging. You see the Protoss player back off. He's not too sure exactly where that nuke is. Kaboom. Once this starts happening as a player, you've really got to find a way to start being aggressive before you just get chipped away constantly. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm going to back up a second there. Just as we were having those nukes that I thought were the most exciting thing, we actually had a small engagement at the exact same time. As I was talking about the Protoss trying to take on some sort of attacks here. Vikings in the back. Pretty good EMPs there. Lost himself a good chunk of his ghosts. The nuke is burning down trees, as it should. That's so funny. Nice play. I mean, he's EMPing the hell out of these Archons. They have 10 hit points, but he can't get that last 10 pieces of damage there. This Nexus will go up. Should consider moving some of his workers around now. Got a pile there that aren't being used well. Shield upgrades. +3 shields about to finish. Air armor 2. Air weapons 2. It's actually got a double cybernetic Squirtle in. Those things are so loud too. Don't think he's got an... Oh, he does have an observer in there. Looks like the Protoss is finally getting himself into the position he wants. Oh, it's base trade time, I think. Nope, not quite. Just split up a little bit of his army. He didn't get the kill. One more volley would have killed it. Colossus getting a lot of hits. Looks like this is going to go down here. Same with that. Pretty big blows they're trading into each other right now. It's more about whose army is going to make it through here, though. Protoss player is getting a little spread out here, though, with his army, as Colossus are running a long ways ahead of the rest of his bulk. Oh, boy. This is a pretty bad move by Squirtle, I hear. I think he's left himself... Oh, man. Don't nuke yourself. This small little bit of an army here is still doing the damage it needs to. Shoot it. Just shoot it once. I like the little nuke logo on the minimap there. Now what do you do as the Protoss player here? I would send a part of my army to kill off that base and then head home to try to deal with it. Oh, mass zealots. That's one way to try to deal with it. Random command centers everywhere. Still a pretty good bank for our Protoss player, though. He is going to lose the Stargates, which is a little unfortunate. There's no storm in these Templars yet. Small battalion's going to come up here and do a lot of damage. Squirtle's, once again, just not moving in a really smart way right now. I think that it's costing him a little bit here. I think he's a little flustered trying to multitask well against this. Don't nuke yourself. So, mining wise, let's look at the income tab. Protoss is mining nothing. You know he has 41 harvesters. He's about to lose a bunch of them. Is there any minerals here? Barely any. He's gonna have to spend a good chunk of his remaining income just to get down an Nexus. Terran player now has got a PF up and going, so he needs to come and do damage. He's got a much better army. He's up by 60 supply. He just needs to go kill his opponent. I don't know if Fantasy can take on this army head on. He might have to just try and go for a base trade. You can see him running away from the army there. I don't think he's got too much of a choice in the matter. Stimming ahead without any medevacs. Alright, Squirtle. Go do the business. Oh man, that's a bit of a problem for Fantasy. Lose a lot of units cheaply right in front of his base. And this is where, as a protoss player, go for the production. Go hit some production buildings, right? If the army is just running away from you, go make it impossible for him to fight back. Lots of energy on those ghosts. Once again, the army from Squirtle moves at all different rates. That's pretty close to GG now, I think. Squirrel's got... He's actually lost very little supply through all this, even though he's not making much. Well, he's making money now. He wasn't making money for a long time. It's just so hard to beat this army. It's got everything you could ever want as a Protoss player, and it's all max upgraded. That's essentially the army for Fantasy. That's really funny that point defense drones stop those giant friggin' volleys. What are they called? Resonance coil? Kinetic overload. Yeah, well, regardless. Versus massive 95, that is so stupid. That's just me as a bitter player. A nuke for all seasons? There's an observer in here. I think Fantasy thinks he's closer in this game than he actually is, but at the same time, Fantasy is known for never giving up on a game until the very last moment. What? What? There we go. He's got 3 ghosts. It's like poker. He needs to chip in a chair. This is a command center too. That's a little chunky. Squirtle's pretty much just about maxed out once again. Another base going down. Still has the ultimate Doom army. Lots of observers just to make sure that he's not going to get them sniped off and lose to some ghosts. Yeah, so Squirtle, go kill this guy already. Fantasy, I love you, but Seeker missiles would be pretty fun against this. See the preemptive point defense drones. Good storms. That's kind of a get out of my game kind of move. Nice red Colossus in the middle of things. And he GG's out when he's down to 4 supply finally. Now he's sure that he's lost this. Alright. Well, this was just up and down matches, so it was only one game. It wasn't a series. I hope you guys enjoyed that. SeKo Starcraft signing off.